Okay, guys, I think we're gonna get rolling here. It's 12 o'clock, and I like to start on time. I'm a bit of a time freak. So, having said that, the format I'm gonna propose is I'm gonna try to cover five quite big topics in a relatively short amount of time, as it pertains to teams. My views. These are my views. These are my opinions. These are based on a lot of information. I see we've got some rock star attendees here, which I guess just means there's no pressure. I will say that I'm going to try and come at this through the lens of the agent. So if you're a team leader, an administrator, a broker owner, just keep in mind I'm going to try to come at this through the lens of an agent. Um, I'm going to try to get through the five bullet points in about 20 to 30 minutes tops. I don't think it'll go that long, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions, and I welcome debate as well. I welcome disagreement. So maybe what we could do is at the end, we'll open up the floor, and if you're comfortable asking questions, then fire away. So without further ado, here we go. This is debunking teams, the truth about how real estate teams really operate. So point number one, I think it's important to discuss where real estate is today as it pertains to the individual agent, the idea of the mid-sized team. Mid-sized team could be like 2 people to maybe 10 people roughly. And then kind of the latest thing that we're seeing out there is the adaptation of the mega team. So quick thing on the real estate team in general. This is my opinion. I don't think the real estate team is anything new. I think it's the modern day version of what the real estate brokerage used to be. If you've been in real estate for 20 plus years, you can attest to the fact that if you joined a brokerage, that broker would oftentimes pay your real estate dues. They would pay for your marketing and advertising, if you can believe it. There was service coming out the wazoo that the broker would offer the agent. Now, with that came a cost. The split or the remuneration structure was different, which we're going to talk about as it pertains to today. There was a lot of things different. You fast forward to today, and the brokerage serves a different purpose, and that's probably for another time. But let's jump into the individual agent. I cannot think of another time in real estate, at least my observations in real estate, where being an independent agent is probably the most difficult thing to do right now. What is an independent agent? Well, by my definition, an independent agent could have an assistant, but generally they work by themselves. That independent agent is doing everything from administrative work, marketing, advertising, answering the phone, accounting. They're doing their own deal trade records. And they're also trying to find time to do two very important things, and that is sell houses, service the client, and also have family time, because there is this thing called balance that we all strive for. With the advancements in the team model today, the idea of a team, I believe, comes about because there's divisions of labor. With a team, generally speaking, the divisions of labor could look something like there's an administrator whose job is to process paperwork, the deals that are written within the confines of the team. That person may also do a little bit of marketing. They may even answer the phone, depending on the size of the team and how busy and productive this team is. Other teams will have a separate marketing person whose job is just that, marketing. This team might have a team leader. It could be an independent person. It could be a husband and wife. That's quite common. It could be 2 family members, or it could be 2 business owners that get together and formulate what they would call a team. There's many structures, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Within the mid-size kind of team, you'll often hear the term buyer agent. I personally can't stand this term, but the definition of a buyer agent is somebody who comes alongside the team leader and has some of the overflow business that is passed over to them to go out and transact. That often falls on the buying side of the transaction. A very important responsibility, but I do believe that in order to build a sustainable business in real estate, you also have to have a high degree of concentration on listings. So that's probably up for debate, and I welcome the questions later in terms of the different views around that. So just to recap, we have the independent agent who kind of is a jack of all trades doing everything. We've got the mid-sized team who, somewhere between a partnership of two, maybe up to that 10 or 12 count. 10 or 12 is usually the combination of administrative roles as well as people that are out selling houses. And then the big one of today is the advancement of the mega team. The Swanee Poll, the T360 Swanee Poll out of California is an independent think tank. This is a company that looks at the residential real estate industry. They have an unbiased view on it. They're not paid by any one particular brokerage. And about 3 years ago, they said that the mega team is the future of real estate. So you kind of sit there and you go, well, what does that really mean? What is a mega team? A mega team is more of a brokerage model with a team, with the word team slapped on top. A mega team consists of almost everything having to do with real estate right across the board. That would involve in-house accounting, inside sales agents, in-house marketing, in-house home staging. Notice the word in-house. It's got a slew of realtors, specialists, buyer agents, seller agents. You might have assistants within the company that service some of the top producers within the mega team model. The mega team has been built out because somebody, whoever kind of started this idea, saw a need for increased service in terms of in winning market share. In other words, selling more houses. How do you recruit good agents? Well, you need to give them really good service so that at the end of the day, you're taking the anything that isn't sales related, basically an agent shouldn't be doing. That's the perfect way. It's not easy, but the mega team recognizes that and really actively works towards taking administrative, marketing, and those types of roles off the agent so they can go sell houses. So coming back to my first comment on the independent, well, why did I say that I think this is the hardest time for an independent agent to be in real estate? Simply put, competition. The market is tight. If you're in the Toronto area, there's 55,000 licensed agents in the GTA. The last number I heard is that's about double the realtor population of New York City. So you got to figure that one out. Market share from the standpoint of listings and buyers, of course, but there's also pooled resources that you get in a team or a mega team where the marketing dollars are generally, there's generally more of them. And you have to kind of look at your business as well from an independent standpoint and say, do I have the tools and resources? Am I committed enough to go and compete for listings and buyers against the team model? It's a bit of a flawed way of doing it, in my opinion, but I am a little bit biased. Moving on to number 2, I call this the financial wheel. The financial wheel and how to ensure you as an agent are making a lot of money. I'm going to use some recent times. If you've opened up a newspaper, or maybe if you haven't been living under a rock, you've seen that the stock market's done one of these. It dropped 30% in value in about a week. And then over the past 4 or 5, 6 weeks, it's steadily come back. So, you kind of sit there and you go, well, what does the stock market and being on a real estate team have anything to do with one another? Well, the last time I checked, if I was going to buy stock in the stock market, let's say we were going to buy Apple. Everybody knows Apple. They have a great product, great name. Well, am I buying the Apple stock because they have a great name and they make a good product? Well, partially I am, but really people that buy the stock are buying it because it's an investment. Now, an investment can be defined many ways, but in this case, I'm going to talk about the money side, the financial side of the investment, because the buying the Apple stock, if you go into it with the mindset that I'm going to break even, or worse, I'm going to lose money, would you buy the stock? Would you invest in Apple if you were going to break even or if you were going to lose money? Well, most of the population in general terms is going to say no. So if you're an agent and you're in an independent or you're currently on a team, you kind of need to take a long, hard look and go, am I getting a positive return on my investment? And of course, the investment side of this is not only time and energy, but it's also the split you pay to your broker or your team leader. So you really want to kind of make sure that you're getting good bang for your buck. Now, I will say this. There's going to be a temptation to go to your broker and your team leader, and you're going to want to maybe negotiate the splits. Because let's say you wake up tomorrow and you go, that Matthew guy, he resonated with me. Maybe I'm not getting the best return on my investment in the form of splits. Word to the wise. Before you go banging on your team leader's door or your broker's door, you have to also understand where they're coming from. At no other time in the real estate industry has it been more expensive to run a brokerage or to run a team. The costs of advertising do nothing but go up, but there's also more at our disposal. So the more that your team offers you in the form of tools and resources, you have to keep in mind the costlier that is. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a right to look at it from your lens and say, am I truly getting the best bang for my buck? And there's a couple ways to kind of look at this. The time value of money is hugely important when you sit down to analyze this question. Would you rather have, there's a couple ways to look at this. If you look at time value of money, is marketing worth $30 an hour or $300 an hour of your time? Well, if you sit down and you take your T4 from 2019, take the full amount and divide it by the number of hours that you think you worked in a week, and then times that by 52. Notice I didn't build in vacation or holidays, because if you're anything like me, I could be on holiday, but I'm still thinking real estate. So you want to figure out what your time is worth an hour. And if you find that you're doing too much administrative, too much marketing, too many activities that aren't producing sales, you might not be getting a very good return on your investment. It doesn't mean it's the team leader or the broker's fault, but it could be a combination of the two. So just keep that in mind. You really want to make sure you're getting a positive ROI wherever you are right now and with whoever you're working with. Number 3, compensation structure. This is probably going to be the hardest and least, how do I put this? It's very hard to just put a finger on compensation structures within the brokerage model, team, and mega team. So I'm going to give you a basis that you might want to look at. The brokerage model, as we know, at least with the bigger brokerages, you've got a combination of desk fees and split with the broker, or it could just be a straight up desk fee with a small transaction fee, or it could be heavily in the direction of just a split. That's fairly self-explanatory if you've been in the business a while. What isn't self-explanatory, and there's no two ways to do it, is the split that you pay as an agent to your team. I've seen some massive swings in the team splits. I've seen as high as 90% of a transaction would go towards the agent, with 10% going towards the team lead. I've seen the opposite. I've seen 10% to the agent, 90% to the team lead. I've given you two extremes. Can you think what the problem with the extreme, the first extreme I gave you, where 90% goes to the agent? It's pretty clear to me. I don't think that team leader is delivering very much service to that agent, which therefore would say to me that agent should get 90%. But the bigger, deeper question I would then look into is the 90% that that agent's getting, how much of their time is spent doing administrative work? $10 an hour, $15 an hour, $20 an hour work, when your time is actually worth $200, $300, $1,000 an hour. So don't be fooled. What I often say to people is, do you want 100% of nothing or 50% of everything? Because the last time I listened to Warren Buffett talk, anytime you do math and it has a zero in it, the answer is zero. So the 100% of nothing is a trap. That 90-10 split would then say to me, that's a trap. Somewhere in the middle, we've got 50-50. And 50-50 is interesting because it seems fair. It seems fair that the team leader would take 50% and you, the agent, would take 50%. But here comes another question. How much is it costing the team leader to carry the listing? In other words, how much does it cost per transaction for the team leader to run and maintain the office, the marketing, the advertising, the overhead, the salaries, the every expense that goes into running the team, that more often than not in teams, the agent doesn't contribute to the expenses. So if that's the case, and on a 50-50 split, the agent comes away looking real good. You're getting 50% of the pie. Don't think for 1 second, and I know there's exceptions to what I'm about to say, but most teams that I've analyzed, the team leader pays a humongous portion of the expenses. Now, you might be sitting there going, well, hang on, Matthew, I'm on a 50-50 split or thereabouts. And, my team leader just bought a Ferrari. And, he bought a 4th home in Florida, and he goes to his place in Venice in the summer. And you see where I'm going with this, right? And at the same time, I'm not really getting a whole lot of service. I don't see a lot of marketing. There's no investment back into the company. There would be a red flag that would go up. But the last time I checked, I don't know many team leaders that go out and drive Ferraris and own multiple homes around the world. Generally, these are very hardworking people, and generally they understand that if they put money back into their business, they're going to see a good return on their investment. So if you go back to the 50-50 split, just remember, unless that 50% is ending up strictly in the team leader's pocket, you're probably getting a very good return on your investment. Another thing to think about from compensation is tiered compensation. I see that a lot, where you might get a percentage up to, let's say, $100,000 in gross or net GCI. And that's a gross or net conversation you'd want to have with the team leader if you're looking to join a team. If you hit that objective, you might go up a tier. So your percentage might go up to you, down to the team leader, but you would have to get to a higher level of GCI, and up the ladder you would go. I generally see that on the buy side of things. I don't see that very often on the listing side of things. And there are a very few percentage of teams that actually combine the two, listings and buyings, into one to formulate a tier. I don't think there's a wrong or right way to do it, but it does come back to ROI on your side and ROI on the team lead side. A couple miscellaneous compensation structures that I'm beginning to see more and more of. Popular out of the US, and it's coming to Canada whether we like it or not, is more of the employee-based agent. So what do I mean by that? Right now, most agents in Ontario and in Canada are and depending on the province, there's different language, independent contractor. An independent contractor versus an employee. Independent contractor, no one tells you where to be, when to be it. There's no punch clock. You pay your cell phone, your gas, you write those expenses off. You're kind of like an entrepreneur in some sense of the word. But on the other side, and it's coming, is the employee model, where you still hold a license, but you work for the brokerage in the strictest of terms. You're told where to be and when to be. You're expected to be there. You work a more structured day. Your pay is very different. You're no longer on percentage pay as a percentage of the commission earned. You're on a fixed fee. It could be a fixed fee per transaction. Is this the right way or wrong way? Again, it's kind of up to you to decide. I think there's pros and cons on both. If on the fixed side, the employee side, you knew that you were guaranteed so many ends a year, you can easily sit down and do some math. If you're more on the traditional side of percentages and splits, it's a little riskier. You don't know where your next meal is going to come from, so to speak. You have to go out and hunt and find it. And then the other miscellaneous thing for you to consider is a hybrid of the two. It could be commission-based plus salary. I've seen that a lot. We practice that. I'm a believer, especially for people just starting out. It can take a while to ramp up business. The commercial real estate world does a very good job of this, where they will actually structure in a base salary for, say, the first year, maybe 18 months. That salary, I've also seen it done on a draw system. So if you're allocated $50,000 for 12 to 18 months for your first time in real estate, you'd have, say, 50 grand to be able to draw upon throughout the year. And most of the times that money is paid back. So it doesn't come for free. It's just a way to structure compensation in terms of helping somebody who's just starting out. So I could talk your ear off on that, but I'm going to end it till the Q&A. Number four, psychological safety, culture, trust, and transparency. I'm going to say it again. This makes my blood boil. If you want to get me going and into a fierce debate, I'm probably going to get you. You bring up psychological safety, team culture, business culture, trust, and transparency. This is the number two thing really that just gets me going, because behind me is a slew of books, and in another room is a slew of books. The vast majority have been written on business. Do you know the number one reason why people leave a company? Not just real estate, but they leave a company. It isn't money. The studies show that it's actually the psychological safety that somebody who is going to work feels. And if I had $1 every time I've heard, I left this team because there was a low trust. I didn't trust my team leader. I didn't know where the leads were going. I thought that lead was supposed to be mine, but John Smith down the hallway got it, or even worse, the team leader kept it. Team leaders who are angry, who are in bad moods, who have personal problems, that can lead to psychological safety, because you never know what mood that person's going to be in when they walk into the office that morning. These are important factors to look at. Some of you that are on teams know exactly what we're talking about. Some of you that are team leaders, me as well, if I'm looking in the mirror, have to be very cognizant of how we come across when we're talking to individuals on the team, departments within the team, and then of course the team in general. And then, that trust and transparency. I was always taught that trust is something that has to be earned. And as long as it can take to be earned over the course of usually a long time, it can quickly be taken away. And if you're in an environment where the culture does not have trust, the red flags will come up because there's a lack of transparency. If you don't know what the business model is of the team, that can actually lead to transparency issues. In my view, no agent on a team should ever enter the office or start their day and not know how leads are distributed, how leads are earned, what gets paid for and by who. In any other corporate setting, if you went down to Bay Street, Wall Street, and you joined a firm, an accounting firm, and a law firm, even startup companies, the good ones have these processes written down so that it is extremely clear to the people that work within the company what is expected and how things are done. If you're a team leader, be open to this. Get the elephant out of the room. Put it out there for the team to see. And if you can't do it, then maybe you need to relook at what and how you're doing things. And if you're an agent, you don't know the answers to these questions, you flat out have the right to know. In my opinion, you've got the right to know. It's not a bad question. In fact, it kind of makes a lot of sense, which leads into my last point. And I kind of struggled on what to say here. So I'm going to try to keep it as condensed as I possibly can. So number 5 that I came up with, the number one question you need to ask yourself, and now this is through the lens of an agent, right? So the number one question you should consider asking yourself, am I putting myself in the best position to succeed? Am I putting myself in the best position to succeed? When I wrote that question down, it led me into one of my favorite quotes. I'm not a big quote person, but this one struck a chord years ago when I heard it. It's an Abraham Lincoln quote. If you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, you give me 6 hours and I got to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 2 hours sharpening my axe. I'm going to spend the first 2 hours sharpening my axe. Let me go back to the question. Am I putting myself in the best position to succeed? Here's what I'm really saying. If you're going to do something, if you're going to commit to your career in real estate, now this could be somebody who's just starting out, halfway through, or maybe has like a 5-year window to exit the industry and, dare I say, retire. You have to ask yourself whether you truly are in the best position to succeed. Because if your axe is dull, if you have a dull axe and you're working away, slugging away, grinding away, which this industry often consists of, my recommendation would be to use a sharp axe. A sharp axe in real estate would be questions and answers to a lot of what we've already talked about here in this meeting. What is the trust and transparency level like? What is the business model of the brokerage, the team, and the mega team? If I join this mega team, or this brokerage, am I truly getting a positive return on my investment? Do they have my back? Will the team leader pick up the phone and call me when there's a problem? Can I call them when there's a problem? You know, there's no sense being a grinder in this industry and working your tail off as hard as most of us do if you're using a dull axe. So I'll kind of round things off. I'm almost right on time at 12:30 by asking the question once more, are you putting yourself in the best position to succeed? So hope you learned something. I'm gonna round this off by just saying, ask big questions from yourself. What is important to you? Whether you're a team leader or an agent, you know, ask big questions in the literal sense. And then also, like, when no one's looking, in your head, write things down, like dream big, think big, and put pen to paper, formulate what you want your life to look like, and then build a real estate career around that.